JBN, we keep you informed. I am Michelle Jones, and in the news, thieves leave man in underwear. A St. Mary man was left in his boxers by robbers who ordered him into a car and robbed him of his shorts. The victim, 23, was reportedly standing along Gulf Road in Prospect when a car drove up. Police reports indicate that a man in the car brandished a knife and ordered the victim into the vehicle. It is reported that the car sped off as soon as the young man got inside. The occupants of the vehicle robbed him of an iPhone 11 valued at $140,000, $2,000 cash, and the shorts he was wearing before they released him. Police are yet to ascertain a suspect in the case, which is among a string of robberies being carried out throughout the island by criminals in motor vehicles. Last Tuesday, 3 days before the robbers stole the man's shorts, criminals struck in the same area. The victim on that occasion was a 20-year-old student. In that incident, the victim took a blue Mark X motor car, believed to be a taxi, in Ocheria's St. Anne, and was intended to get to Port Maria. Upon reaching along the Prospect Main Road, the vehicle reportedly diverted onto the Prospect Gulf Road. The victim was reportedly told by the driver that he was leaving the passenger on that road. However, shortly thereafter, the driver stopped the car and a male passenger pulled a handgun and proceeded to rob the student. The robbers took his Samsung Note 20 cell phone, which is valued at $120,000, 2 bank cards, and $400 cash before speeding off, leaving the youngster on the roadway. At least 2 similar incidents were reported in the corporate area last week. Reports are that a 23-year-old man was walking along Russell Heights, Kingston 8, about 6 p.m. when 2 men, one armed with a knife and the other with a gun, who were traveling in a grey Subaru Impreza motor car, demanded that he enter the motor car. The man complied and was robbed of an iPhone valued at $70,000 and one white Apple earphone valued at $20,000. The men drove away from the scene with their victim, who they later released in the Halfway Tree area of St. Andrew. 88-year-old woman dies in fire in Portland. It was close to 8 months that Tony had not seen his aunt, Iselin Christie, as he surveyed the fire-ravaged concrete home in which the 88-year-old perished. Tony appeared to have ruled having not visited her more often before he was robbed by fate. As tears rolled down his cheeks, Tony, who declined to disclose his surname, was a sorry sight of regret. The elderly woman, who lived alone, was last seen alive by a taxi driver shortly before the 2 p.m. Sunday curfew during a visit to her home. "We never expect nothing like this to happen to Auntie," Tony said. "I should have visited her more often, but work prevented me from doing so, although me always think about her." The Scorch House bore telltale signs of the torment the octogenarian suffered as residents and relatives were repelled by the searing heat of the blaze. Tony, who described the raging fire as hell, said that Christie's ordeal was unimaginable. "She'd burn from her torso, down to her foot them burn off. Them still have her remains on the ground. The funeral home never took up all her, so some of her remains still in the house," he said. Firefighters received a call shortly after 10 p.m. Sunday, but by the time they arrived, the house at Old Road had already been engulfed in flames. Assistant Superintendent of the Port Antonio Fire Brigade, Everald Brown, said that there was very little fire crews could do to save life or property. The firefighters were informed that the owner of the house was believed to be trapped inside. At the time, the rescue operation was completely impossible due to the state of the fire, Brown further said. Dozens of onlookers reportedly stood by helplessly as a late-night inferno swept through the house of the senior citizen. Gary Anderson, a taxi driver who regularly transported Christie to the Portland capital, Port Antonio, remembered her as a caring woman who got along with everybody. "Me see her yesterday, and she said that she'll cook her dinner, was going to lie down and read her paper. I want good woman to me. Me just can't believe," Anderson said. Portland Eastern Member of Parliament Anne-Marie Vaz, who visited Black Rock on Monday, broke down in tears as she viewed the wreckage. This unfortunate incident has affected just about everyone in the Black Rock community who knew her. The entire district has been plunged into mourning, Vaz said. Wright takes leave from JLP. The ruling Jamaica Labour Party has given the green light for its Central Westmoreland Member of Parliament, George Wright, to take a leave of absence from the party. Wright has also been relieved of all party duties. The full statement reads, George Wright's application for leave of absence from the JLP approved. An application by Central Westmoreland Member of Parliament, George Wright, has been approved for him to take a leave of absence on the Jamaica Labour Party. Mr. Wright has also been relieved of all party-related duties. The Operations Council of the JLP had commenced deliberations last week to consider the issue of Wright's membership in the party. The developments come following a meeting last week between the Secretariat of the JLP and Mr. Wright. The meeting took place at the directive of party leader, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, OM, MP. Mr. Wright's leave of absence from the JLP also follows his withdrawal from the JLP Parliamentary Caucus last week and his application for leave of absence from the House of Representatives. In commenting on the development, JLP General Secretary Dr. Horace Chang says the party takes note of the fact that the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF has concluded their investigation without charge into the viral video. However, Dr. Chang says the JLP recognizes that there remains unresolved concerns in relation to the issues surrounding Mr. Wright, and as such, the series of actions taken in respect of Wright are necessary. Dr. Chang noted that the JLP acted within the legal powers afforded to it, both by Jamaica law and the JLP Constitution. The JLP reiterates its stance against violence against any gender, in particular the nation's women. The party also wishes to underscore its preparedness to ensure that in the interest of good governance, action is taken even in respect of issues which have to date not met the threshold for prosecution in a court of law. Elderly landlord has to wait 8 months to take non-paying tenant to court. The plight of a 75-year-old government pensioner worsened in recent weeks when her attempt to have the court evict a tenant who was not paid rent for a 3-bedroom house since January, resulting in the matter being set for hearing in another 8 months. Attorney Bert Samuels, who is representing the pensioner, said he has filed an action for possession and for rent owing and continuing in the corporate area parish court. However, when the summons was received, the court appearance was scheduled for a December 2021 date. She was horrified to know that in the past, it would have taken 2 months for her to be in court, and now it has gone to 8 months for her first date, Samuels said. What is the pensioner who relied on the rent to put pot on fire to do? When her property taxes are to be paid, what will she do? He asked, adding that since his client retired 10 years ago, she had been renting the house in order to supplement her government pension. This delay of 8 months amounts to denial of justice for my senior citizen landlord. All her savings were used to acquire what she thought was a good investment to supplement her meager pension payments. This appalling situation must be addressed, and addressed very soon. Once this summons is served on the tenant will very likely refuse to pay another dollar's rent, Samuels said. The tenant, a woman, has reportedly paid no rent since January, which resulted in the landlord giving her notice to quit in February. That notice expired in March. According to the Rent Assessment Board, tenants need to know that although they are on notice to quit, they are obligated to pay rental until the premises are vacated. If rental is not paid, they would be in arrears of rental and could be sued to recover same. The board also stipulates that if tenants are unable to pay rent, they have a duty to go to the landlord and make the necessary arrangements. The board advises that landlords cannot sue for rent unless it is 30 days overdue. Additionally, if utilities are unpaid by the tenant, landlords can sue tenants for outstanding amounts. Samuel said his client will be left to pay interest on the property taxes when she pays late, but will receive no interest on her rent if and when she collects it. I said if and when she collects, because tenants, more often than not, disappear after they move out owing rent. The tenant moves in, pays the first month's rent, and soon thereafter they cease paying. They know full well that the wheels of justice grind so slow, the lawyer said. By the time the landlord applies for a court date and obtains an order from the court, 12 months or more free occupation has lapsed, and thereafter they move out by night and disappear with 1 year's rental owing. They leave behind a hefty water and light bill also. Many retirees have elected to lock up their lettings rather than expose themselves to the abuse of some tenants, added Samuels. The landlord-tenant covenant outlines that a tenant is obligated to notify his or her landlord before vacating any rented property and should also make arrangements to pay outstanding rent prior to vacating or within a reasonable time thereafter. The tenant should also provide an address at which, if necessary, process or rent recovery may be served. Yesterday, Samuel said he was upset at having to tell his client that she has to wait 8 months before going before the courts. I felt helpless that here was a case of abuse. They delay injustice and I had no answers or quick fixing for the client, and therefore it's my call and cry for the system to be improved, because people will seek extrajudicial methods to get people out of their premises, and it is a criminal offense to interfere with the quiet and peaceful enjoyment of the property by the tenant. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place, said Samuels. This is a call, even with the restrictions imposed by COVID, for immediate action to be taken to address the injustices to landlords, who in most instances are elderly, and the pensioners, who receive rent as their main source of income. And this call is not just for rental matters, it's any case that comes up now during COVID, he added. 180 new COVID cases, 11 more deaths. The Ministry of Health and Wellness today reported that 118 people tested positive for COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, while the death toll increased to 738, with the addition of 11 virus-related deaths from January 20 to April 18. The new infections pushed the number of confirmed cases since the outbreak to 44,254. 69 of those infected are females and 49 are males, with ages ranging from 1 to 89 years. The cases were recorded in St. Catherine 18, St. Elizabeth 17, Kingston and St. Andrew 15, St. Mary 12, Manchester 11, Portland 11, St. James 11, St. Anne 6, Westmoreland 5, Trelawney 4, Clarendon 4, St. Thomas 3, and Hanover 1. Meanwhile, the 11 newly reported deaths are as follows: a 42-year-old male from Trelawney, whose death was previously under investigation; an 88-year-old male from Trelawney; a 60-year-old female from St. Thomas; an 86-year-old female from St. Thomas; a 45-year-old female from St. Thomas; a 75-year-old male from St. Thomas; a 57-year-old female from St. Mary; a 94-year-old female from Manchester; a 74-year-old male from St. Anne; a 57-year-old female from St. Anne, and a 67-year-old female from St. Catherine. The ministry also recorded 3 coincidental deaths, 130 recoveries, and 311 hospitalizations, 24 moderately ill, and 29 critically ill. There are 23,236 active cases, while 15 people are quarantined in a facility and 32,375 are in home quarantine. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.